we look at the responses that have become popularized by ice water plunge, right? So the 0 to 4-ish degrees. And we see parasympathetic improvement. So it's that focus and it's the ability to withstand pain. And we have better blood glucose control, better immunity. All that happens for men in that 0 to 4. But for women, it's too cold and our body gets a severe stress response. So sympathetic drive goes up. We have severe constriction. We don't shiver like men do. So our shivering response isn't as robust. But if we get into...
Hi, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and this is Well, Hello Anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with the incredible Dr. Stacy Sims. We covered so much in last week's episode, and that is there and waiting for you after you've listened to this one. So be sure to go back if you haven't heard it, if you're just tuning in for part 2. And we started last week's episode talking about, change. Making change is hard, but change is important, and the science is completely different to what we understood as women. When it comes to the protocols, the strategies, the practices that make a difference for our body composition, how we feel about our bodies, our body confidence, for our heart health, for our mood, for our mental health, for our bone density, for our muscle density. We have for so long, for decades, been following protocols that have been designed for men. And the research now clearly shows that women respond differently. We need to do things differently. And so it is with pleasure that we get started with part 2 of my conversation with the wonderful Dr. Stacy Sims. I want to come back to protein because we need that to help build muscle. Protein is made up of amino acids. What could you advise kind of women in that age range that I mentioned earlier in terms of starting to get those opportunities to eat across the day, because we need to make sure we're eating regularly. I know you love your protein coffee. I haven't tried that. I'm going to. But yeah, what do we need to do in terms of protein? Because often I think we believe we're getting more protein than we actually are. I think we have to kind of like do a little bit of adding up for a few days just to kind of suss it out. Then we know we're hitting our targets.
Yes, it's been on the radar of a lot of obesity research because we see higher protein diets tend to facilitate weight loss. And that holds true in normal weight people too. So when we're talking about protein, I want people to realize that the RDA protein is based on the very bare minimum that someone needs to eat to prevent malnutrition. So as soon as we start getting into our older years, we need to have more protein because our bodies are not as responsive to protein and resistance training. We become what we call anabolically resistant. So that RDA is not appropriate for people who are 35 plus, especially when we're looking at 40-ish, when we really get into the depths of perimenopause and we start really having the fight between lean mass loss and body fat gain. We need more protein to attenuate that. So when we start talking about grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, we see that recreational female athletes, the bare minimum is 1.6 grams per kilo per day. When we start getting into our peri and postmenopausal women where we need more, or we get women who are training specifically for a hard event, we're looking on the upwards of 1.8 to 2.2 grams per kilo. And yes, it seems like a lot when you do the math, but it doesn't have to be difficult if we think about it. Every eating opportunity, we're having some protein. And it's not necessarily a big slab of meat. I mean, I'm plant forward. It can be, chia and oats for breakfast. You can definitely supplement if you need to here and there with some protein powder. But if we're thinking about protein, there's so many different sources. So if you're having a salad, you're putting in different beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, and maybe tempeh if you're plant forward, or maybe you're having some fish or some chicken, right? And then you can have a bowl of salad that has 40 or 50 grams. So we're looking around that 40 or 50 gram mark for every meal, and then looking around that 15 to 20 gram mark at every snack. So if we're thinking about every eating opportunity hitting some of that protein, then all of a sudden, the end of the day, we've hit 120 to 150 grams.
Mm. And it changes the cravings for sugar, has been my experience.
Yes. Absolutely. You have more satiation. You don't have a big insulin response to a heavier protein meal, which helps moderate your blood glucose. So you don't have these big ups and downs. It also helps with neurotransmitters so that you're not getting that swoop of fatigue that comes with a blood sugar rush. So your brain is not feeling like it's under threat, and you don't get that deadened fatigue that you have with all of our fluctuations of our blood sugar. So then you end up craving less simple carbohydrates. And if you start the day with some protein and carb, then again, it leads forward to reducing that simple carbohydrate craving. And we end up moving more incidentally and not feeling like, oh, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to stay here all day.
It is absolutely profound. And I tell you what, if my sugar cravings have been curbed, yours can be too. If you're listening and thinking, oh, I'm such a sweet tooth. I have been my whole life. And I thought, Jodi, you are 51. Come on, get on top of this. And that's when I went and sought some professional advice, saw a nutritionist, and I'm actually heading back to see her again soon. Because just the changes I made after the first session have just been absolutely life changing. And so,
Right.
yeah, it's honestly, yeah. I mean, I don't, this isn't about me, but I just want to like really assure you as a listener that I looked at it as an experiment. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to take this advice. We've got someone like you who we can trust, who has like absolutely revolutionized the understanding of what women need when it comes to diet. Oh, I say diet as in intake of food, not diet, but nutrition, exercise, recovery. Which brings me to a question. I couldn't help but bring in my creatine I really need to trust people's recommendations. And so when I knew you were recommending Momentous, that was the brand that I needed to get. And honest to goodness, I just have one scoop a day, and the clarity that I have in my thinking, I feel like I'm 20 again. Honestly, Dr. Sims, I can't thank you enough. So creatine, it's made up of 3 amino acids. It's something that we don't make enough of. I'm plant forward like yourself. I'm actually, I eat fish. I don't eat meat of any other kind. Gosh, I eat a lot of tuna. The creatine is something that we don't necessarily get enough in our diet or make enough of. Why is creatine supplementation really important for women?
You just alluded to where we don't necessarily eat enough in our diets. Women tend to eat less than men anyway, and tend not to eat really the 20 chicken breasts a day that you would need to have enough creatine.
Oh.
Yeah, so it does take a lot of dietary intake to get what you need. Yes, your liver makes between 3 and 5 grams, but we excrete 1.5 to 2. So our body is really like, I need it. For every fast energetic in the body, we need creatine. Brain health, gut health, heart health, all of the things. So when we start looking at creatine supplementation, it used to be, oh, it's just for muscle performance. We see it in the bodybuilding world. We want to get swole, so we take 20 grams of creatine a day. So kind of push to that whole category of it's just for bodybuilders. But there's been a upsurge of really important research that's come out on creatines, and it's creatine monohydrate for the most part. There are other forms, but creatine monohydrate is the most studied one. It's actually, I think it's the most studied supplement, full stop, besides maybe protein powder or protein supplementation. So we're looking at it for women. We see that, especially with mood changes and fatigue that we get, and when we are sympathetically driven because of hormone shifts in perimenopause, it helps stabilize the mood by helping with neurotransmitters. We see there are some randomized controlled trials that are looking at serotonin reuptake inhibitors with cognitive behavior therapy, creatine with serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or creatine and CBT. And the creatine and CBT was way more powerful, bringing women out of mood disruption and depression than any of the pharmaceuticals. So it has to do with brain metabolism, right? So if we're looking at women, especially both of us down here in the Southern Hemisphere with the winter weather and the depression that comes with being locked inside and all that kind of stuff, now's the time to be boosting the creatine. It helps with the dopamine. It helps with all of the neurotransmitters and the brain metabolism. So the brain has all the fuel that it needs to keep firing properly and bring you up out of that fatigue. We see that with shift workers too. So we know that with shift work and circadian rhythm shifts that occur with shift work, if you're having up to 20 grams of creatine a day, it brings the circadian rhythm out of its disruption and helps with total body metabolism. So for women, when we're looking at all the changes that are happening in perimenopause, it becomes really important to get that creatine supplementation, especially when we're looking at that sympathetic drive. And the inability to get out of that tired but wired state, creatine helps bring you out of it. There's even a lot of evidence now coming out to show how beneficial it is for helping with bone and muscle tissue. Building bone, it's important for building bone. Of course, it's important for muscle performance. And it also leans into pregnancy. It's beneficial in pregnancy. So there's a lot of research that's coming out. There is a collective of creatine researchers, and they've put together a website. It's called Creatine for Health. And so you can go in there and you can find out all the benefits of using creatine. And you can start with 3 to 5 grams, which is your one scoop. And that's all you need. You don't have to dose up to the 20, except in different periods of time when you're under a lot of undue stress and fatigue.
Okay, thank you. It's really nice to have that. And it is. And it's so, I wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest, when I first, and I just put it in my water and it's tasteless. It doesn't have a taste. It doesn't have any flavor. It doesn't change, the taste of the water. And I just keep a spoon with me just to kind of keep mixing it in. It's so easy to take. So the creatine, one of the things I just wanted to point out to listeners who might not be familiar, a serotonin reuptake inhibitor is an antidepressant. And so that's phenomenal. And the sympathetic drive that you were talking about, that's anxiety puts us into that state. And given that the podcast is called Well, Hello Anxiety, we know that creatine is something that you can start. Do you have to wean yourself onto it? I didn't. I just started taking a scoop a day. Nah, good. Okay, great. Thank you.
It does take about 3 weeks for the body to get fully saturated. So you won't necessarily feel the effects right away. It could take up to 10 days to really start to fully feel effects. Yeah. And then you're like, what? All of a sudden I feel so much better. What's going on? Oh, it's the creatine. I got it. Yeah.
Yes. And it's that capacity, this idea that we're building, and I do want to come to sauna and cold plunge, a couple of quick questions in a moment, but strength training is working. It's a stressor. It's a regular incremental stressor that we adapt to. We build not only our physical capacity, but we build our psychological capacity. With the creatine, you just cope better. You feel more stable. You feel clearer. It's such a powerful supplement, and I know that. My husband and I, we've actually, it hasn't been installed yet, but we've just purchased an outdoor sauna, a traditional outdoor barrel. Can't wait. I'm so excited. Cannot wait to get that at home. That's something that, we've invested in for our health and our longevity. But I'm not interested in asking about how that's going to help him. I want to know how that's going to help me. Let's talk about saunas for women. Incidentally, my goodness, just a couple of weeks ago, I went to this beautiful free event. There's an outdoor sauna on the beach in Mordialloc, which is a suburb of Melbourne, and they did welcomed 30 women, just first in, best dressed for tickets. We took it in turns to have a sauna, and there was a beautiful series of essential oils and just a beautiful mindful experience. Then we had a dip in the in the bay, and then we had a couple of guest speakers. It was phenomenal. It was community, it was sauna, it was ice, it was
Awesome.
beautiful pumpkin soup and yummy food. I was looking for the protein, I must say. I'm like, where's the protein? But it was a beautiful event. But yeah, tell us, saunas are more accessible for people. They're in gyms and they're in local pools. Infrared saunas can vary from a couple of $1,000s upwards. So they're probably more accessible than they have been. Why is having a sauna a couple of times a week or more, what benefit is that going to have for our health and our longevity? And can you make a reference to heat shock proteins, please?
When we look at the human body, it's designed to take on a stress and adapt. Like I said at the start of the podcast, we're now in a global society where everything is controlled. So, I mean, in New Zealand, it gets up to 25 degrees and people freak out because it's like, oh my God, it's so hot. It's like, well, it's because you're in a temperate environment where it doesn't really vary between 10 and 20 degrees. So we start getting too hot. But you want that, especially women, because if we go into a very hot environment, which is a sauna, we start to have incredible thermoregulatory challenges. So that means like first we walk in and we start to feel hot because our blood is coming to the surface to try to offload heat, and we're starting to have some responses of the hypothalamus that we're getting hot. We got to do something here. So we're vasodilating. And when we vasodilate, we actually absorb some of the heat from the environment. And so the body has to learn how to deal with that. So then we'll start sweating maybe 15 or 20 minutes in. But when we are looking at what is the heat actually doing, it's increasing our core temperature. So that's the temperature in and around all of our essential organs. And because that is a very threatening survival stress, then we start to have responses that will overcome that stress. Part of it is the heat shock protein, where it's like, okay, we're uncoupling and then we're understanding that this is in response to heat exposure. So we have to recouple to make things stronger and everything more robust. So that's our immune system, it's our blood sugar, it's our brain, and we're looking at an increase in BDNF production. So everything that creates survival is being really pushed by the heat exposure. And it doesn't take a lot of exposure. We can look 10 to 20 minutes a few times a week to actually get all of these benefits that we see in all the longevity conversations. And we don't have to look at things like rapamycin and methylene blue and all these other things that the bro science is pushing. Now, the heat works better for women because naturally over our reproductive years, we have about a monthly shift in our core temperature by about 1 degrees Celsius. Right before ovulation, our temperature dips because of estrogen, and after ovulation, it comes up because of progesterone. So our body naturally responds and our thresholds shift. So when we get into the heat, we don't have to have a primer per se for our body to understand that the core temperature is going up. It's like, yep, okay, it's going up. And then it starts really going up. And then it's like, okay, now we have to do something. Whereas men will go into a sauna, and because they don't vasodilate as long as women and they start sweating sooner, they feel uncomfortable. So I think, when you're looking at sex differences, if men can stay in the sauna in equivalent time that women can, they too will get all the robust responses to improve BDNF production, endocrine system, even things like telomere length and autophagy. It's when we start looking the other way and go, okay, well, if we put everybody into the cold, that's when we start having problems.
Yes, and that is probably my last question, given looking at the time. Honestly, I find it so painful. I find it painful to be in the cold. Like literally, it feels like pins and needles in my skin. And the first thing I want to ask for you to share, please, is share the difference in temperature that we can, as women, get a benefit from cold water immersion versus what sort of temperature men need to get the benefits.
You look at the research that's been around since 2010. People forget that it's been done until you start digging in. We look at the responses that have become popularized by ice water plunge, right? So the 0 to 4-ish degrees. And we see parasympathetic improvement. So it's that focus and it's the ability to withstand pain. And we have better blood glucose control, better immunity. All that happens for men in that 0 to 4. But for women, it's too cold. and our body gets a severe stress response. So sympathetic drive goes up. We have severe constriction. We don't shiver like men do. So our shivering response isn't as robust. But if we get into lowest 10, but ideally between 10 and 16 degrees, women will have a similar response to the ice that men do without that severe stress response that they would get from the ice. But the caveat is, even though they will get responses to the cold, they are never as robust as the men's, but they are more robust in the heat. So if we're looking at all of the longevity outcomes from environmental conditions, I really try to push women towards the heat and the sauna. Again, it's individual. There are some women who thrive in the cold and some women who thrive in the heat. As long as you are conscious that it's an environmental stress, and if it's too much of one or the other, so it's too cold or it's way too hot, your body won't respond in the positive manner. It'll be overstressed and it will have a negative response.
Oh, thank you. And I think that that's been my experience, that it's been too cold. And I have to really focus on lengthening my exhale and trying to manage that sympathetic state of high stress. And I feel panicked. I don't panic, but I've got that panicked feel. But I do it because I know it's good for me, and I know that the higher temperature, 10 to 15 degrees, is preferable. But the feeling afterwards is phenomenal, isn't it? The dopamine boost, I think it's 300% dopamine boost. I don't know if you know the science around that. Do you, Dr. Sims? The
Percentage, no, but there is, yeah. I want to talk to you after you keep doing your sauna exposures. Because when you get in there, you start to feel sleepy. Then when you get out, you're like, oh, all of a sudden I'm dry. And then about a half an hour later, you feel this incredible euphoria and relaxed feeling. So it's a delayed dopamine response when you get in the heat. But I want to see how you can compare it between the cold and the heat.
Okay. And thank you. And so for very last question, if someone has the access, because it's, you might need to go to a recovery lab, or you might need to, find somewhere where you can do some contrast therapy, what would be an ideal protocol for a woman our age, this kind of I'm postmenopausal, but some will be peri, for sauna versus ice bath, because we're setting ourselves up at home so we can get an ice bath eventually. What would be a great protocol for those of us in this stage of life to be thinking about if we are going to have access to both of those to, obviously improve our mood, but also our longevity?
Different ways we can use the cold and different ways we can use the heat. If we want to extend our training stress, so you are at the gym and you're like, oh, they have a sauna. If you go into the sauna for 10 to 20 minutes after a training session, you will extend the training stress and get greater adaptations from the exposure to the heat, because you're having a drop in your partial pressure of oxygen. You're having a whole bunch of heat responses that is similar to still training. If you want to use it for health reasons, then you don't want to go in right after training. You want to have it separate because it is a strong stress. When we're looking at cold therapy, you do not want to do it after training because it blunts adaptation. It is both in men and women, and especially in women, we see it has a significant blunting effect in muscle growth and adaptation. Wow. So you want to use it on a different day or 5 to 6 hours after training.
Okay.
So you need to plan that into your day. So if we're looking ideally for health, you want to look at what environmental stress you want to use. You don't want to use them both on the same day. You probably could mix them, but it's better to do a block of heat and then go, okay, now I'm going to do a block of cold. Just because when we're looking at the contrast, there doesn't really seem to be a lot of evidence to show that doing contrast therapy is very efficacious for health outcomes. It used to be contrast therapy was done for recovery from sport, but now you're seeing all the evidence coming out showing that cold is not beneficial post-exercise. Heat is, cold is not. If you are injured and have soft tissue injury, getting into the heat, even into a hot tub, helps facilitate muscle repair. So when we look at all the benefits of heat, it's like, let's do a heat block and then have a washout, then do a cold block, depending on what you want to do. If you are living in a cold environment, then I really do suggest starting with a heat block. If you're living in a hot environment, start with a cold block, because you want to look at the extremes where you are living. And it doesn't have to be every day. It can be 2 to 3 times a week. And, cold exposure, if you're looking at your 10 to 16 degrees, that can be 5 minutes, enough to get that euphoria feeling. It doesn't have to be long. You could do intermittent cold exposure where you're doing 2 minutes in, 3 minutes out, 2 minutes in, 3 minutes out, something like that. But,
yes.
yeah. Which seems to be a bit more tolerable, especially if you have Raynaud's, which a lot of women do. But for the heat, you want to sit high for the greatest heat. And then when you're like, I just can't handle anymore, come back down a lower level so that you can maximize your time in there. You can start with 10 minutes and work your way up to 30, but don't stay in there for any longer than 30 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. So we don't need to be in the sauna and then in the ice bath and back in the sauna. We don't need to do the contrast. We would put them on different days. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And no cold after training, not cold on a training day, but heat on a training day. You have honestly, you've shared so many practical ideas today, and I can't thank you enough, not only for your time today sharing with us, but also just for the continued work you do and how hard you work to bring this science to the public, because that's not easy. That requires a lot of effort. And on behalf of all the women I know who just, like, when I told the girls at CrossFit, I said, when we'd arranged an interview, they were just like, I can't wait to listen. So you've just got this raving, like, fan club out everywhere I go, and I'm telling anyone who'll listen all about it as well, of course. And women are sharing these kinds of episodes with each other and lifting each other up and supporting each other. And on behalf of the community that I'm in, just want to say a huge thank you, because your work is literally life-changing, and we're going to live longer, stronger, healthier, happier lives because of it. So awesome. So thank you for your time, and
you're welcome.
How can people contact you? Where's the best place for people to learn more about you, learn more from you, because you've got phenomenal courses. Please share with us those web addresses, Instagram, all of it.
Yeah. So our website is drstacysims.com. So STACYSIMS. So pretty simple. And that's where you can find out all the courses and sign up for our biweekly newsletter, and kind of find out all the different projects and things that I'm involved in and call outs for research. If you're like, I don't want to dig into the web, I just want to be on social media, I'll do some scrolling, then you can find me on Instagram as Dr. Stacy Sims, LinkedIn, same thing. And because we are still a little bit old school, I'm still on Facebook at Dr. Stacy Sims.
You're a Gen Xer. Me too. I'm on Facebook too.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. And I just want to really say, as a listener, jump onto Dr. Stacy's newsletter, because I've made your protein pancakes. Oh my gosh. But do you know what I did? I made the whole batch and then ate the whole batch because they were so delicious. I didn't even know how much protein I got. But yes, you share recipes, you share insights. Your latest newsletter was all about longevity and the specific research to women. So please jump on Dr. Stacy's website. And also, if you do work with younger girls, Next Gen is one of Dr. Stacy's courses. I just sent it through to someone the other day, where you can learn about the puberty changes and what sort of special training considerations are important for young girls. There's so much knowledge. You are awesome. I've loved talking with you, and I just want to say another huge thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. It's been great. Love it.
Thank you for sharing this time with me on Well, Hello Anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week.